through the formalities just to check if the guys that are connected virtually are able to hear me. If one of you can just open your mic and just acknowledge. Secondly, the guys at the back with the cameras, that the sound is clear. And
you are loud and clear.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And then can I request the leadership from the far left to test the mic in front of her? No? Can we open it there at the back? Can you open the table mics?
Good morning.
Thank you. Ms. Shishira.
Good morning.
Perfectly.
Good morning.
Okay. Thank you very much, colleagues. We are ready to start, and allow me to welcome you to the AGSA media briefing on the 2020-2021 MFMA audit outcomes. I know most of you have been waiting in anticipation for this, and some of the articles that we have seen have already anticipated and said our municipalities are in chaos. I don't know if we are going to disappoint you, but wait to hear our story. But before I start, I would like to firstly introduce myself. My name is Harold Maloka, and I'm together here with the Auditor-General, Mr. Kani Maluleke, and then together with the Auditor-General, his Deputy Auditor-General, Mr. Vonani Chauke, together with our Head of Audit for municipalities. So if you have technical questions of things that you really can't get there, she's the one. Her name is Mabato Sidikela. And before we also start, allow me to wish the nation's Auditor General a happy birthday today. So we are ready to start. We'll start with the Auditor General, who is going to make a presentation. After the presentation, we will then take you through our interactive website to just give you a sense of where you will be able to find some of the nitty-gritty detail that complements what you have inside the report. It won't be long. And then from there, we will be ready to take your questions. So without any much of a waste of time, allow me to invite the Auditor General to the podium.
Thank you very much, Harold. Good morning, everybody, those who are here present with me physically and those that are listening to us elsewhere. Thank you very much for taking the time to come and listen to the story of the Auditor-General and the work that we've conducted as we've done the audits for local government in respect of the year that ended June 2021. The audits have been completed. The annual reports, including the audit reports, have been tabled in the relevant councils. The leaders of the different provinces have been consulted and engaged on these outcomes in great detail. And we've also spent some time with the National Executive talking about the consolidated picture that we see. Today, we launched the Consolidated General Report, which is something we do every single year. That report contains a detailed analysis of the outcomes for each and every one of the 257 municipalities that we audited. In that report, you also see detail of what we found in the different districts. You also find detail for each and every province. The general report includes not just the outcomes, but also insights on the outcomes, our recommendations, as well as the commitments that we've received from the different leaders. And I'm particularly excited by what Harold will share with you when I'm done, which is an interesting innovation by Team AGSA of including a detailed analysis for each municipality in a click-through way through our website. Please allow me to start by crediting and thanking the members of the formidable Team AGSA who have toiled long and hard to get us to a point where not only do we finish the audits, but we are in a position to table this report today. Our reputation promise is one where we keep saying that we want to audit and report in a way that adds value into the system of governance by offering independent, credible insights that really equip those that run government with information that allows them to do even better in executing on their roles. Yes, we don't run government, but we see ourselves as an integral part of the accountability ecosystem, which comprises different role players. Our role is to generate these insights and to use them to influence the type of action that we seek, to even use our new powers to enforce such action. And all of it really about making sure that every part of what we have called an accountability ecosystem is actually propelled into action. This ecosystem essentially covers different role players who have distinct yet complementary roles, and their roles and responsibilities are set out in the Constitution, in the Municipal Systems Act, as well as in the Municipal Finance Management Act. If you look specifically at what happens within a municipality, you've got the officials, you've also got the senior managers, you've got the municipal manager, who has to set up a functional and effective internal audit and audit committee to support him or her. Then you've got the mayor and the speaker who have particular responsibilities, and they also work with the MPAC and the council to fulfill on their responsibilities as set out in law. Beyond each municipality, though, the local government sphere relies on the effective contribution by other players. If you look across into the provincial sphere, specifically the coordinating departments, we're referring here to the provincial treasury, the provincial COCTA, as well as the offices of the premier. Crucial that they live up to their responsibilities to support, to monitor, to oversee, and even intervene where things go wrong. And those responsibilities are set out, as I've said, in the Constitution, in the MFMA, and the Municipal Systems Act. We also need to look to the provincial legislatures and ask the question of to what extent are they ensuring that the provincial departments do their bit and that they are held accountable for their own contribution into strengthening governance and capacity in municipalities. If you look at the national executive, you've got to look at the National Department of COCTA, you've got to look at the role that the Minister of COCTA ought to play as set out in the Municipal Finance Management Act. And the question would be, to what extent is Parliament also fulfilling its role in holding that minister accountable for their contribution into the system of governance? We've placed the office of the AG at the center of this diagram because we have the benefit of auditing every single player across the system every single year. And we see ourselves as having the opportunity to provide useful insight that can inform the right changes in behavior and in choices by all of the different role players. We want to use our audit mandate to inform different action and ultimately to even enforce it using the powers that we have. There's a key player in the accountability ecosystem that often gets forgotten, which is the role of the citizen. An active citizenry is central to ensuring that municipalities play their role, that the leaders in those municipalities are held accountable for fulfilling their role as given in law. Allow me to now turn to the specific outcomes. As you know, every single year when we audit, we look at three areas. We look at credibility of financial information, we look at the usefulness and reliability of performance information. We also look at compliance with key laws and regulations. Our audit reports also set out our view on the status of internal controls. We also provide some insight on where the material irregularities are and what the status of these MIs would be. Together, all of these components, the three areas plus internal controls plus the MIs, give one a sense of the status of that public institution. To what extent is the system of transparency, of governance, of integrity, of performance and accountability, to what extent is that system being strengthened? And I must also explain that whilst a clean audit does not confirm that services have been delivered or that performance has been at the desired level, a clean audit is confirmation that the institution has put in place the key disciplines of good financial and performance management, and that it is well positioned to deliver on its mandate and is well positioned to do so with transparency. What we see looking at this year's audit outcomes is that there is no improvement in the status of transparency, accountability, performance, or integrity of local government. Throughout the tenure of the fourth administration of local government, which started following the 2016 elections and left the system following the 2021 elections, we've not seen an improvement. If you compare from 5 years ago, there were 33 clean audits. This time around, there are 41 clean audits. So not much movement in the right direction. It's also important to note that amongst those 42 are predominantly the district municipalities. Only one metro, very few local municipalities, very few municipal entities, and also very few intermediate cities, which then says that those entities, those municipalities that have got the greatest budget, that have got the greatest impact in terms of service delivery, they're not adequately represented in that 41. I'd like to now cast over to the other side of the slide, still on the same slide, same numbers. If you look at the 9 in the blue, that denotes the late or non-submissions. What it tells you is that the culture of not submitting financials, or even of submitting financials late, which would be a flouting of the law, that culture is starting to set in again. 5 years ago, 90% of municipalities would submit their financials on time for audit. Now we're sitting at 82% that do so on time. There are a number of provinces where this is a struggle, specifically the Free State, the Northwest, and the Northern Cape. They need particular attention to ensure that we push back on this new dynamic that's entering the system again. We've got 25 audits with disclaimer of audit opinion. That makes up 10% of the audits that we were able to complete. Yes, last year we reported 33 and the year before 32, but 25 is still a sizable number, especially if you consider that many of the ones that were uncompleted tend to be repeat disclaimers. Disclaimer is the very worst audit opinion that anyone can get, and I'll talk a bit more about that later. 4 adverse opinions, 78 opinions that were qualified in terms of the credibility of financial statements, in that their financial statements are not credible. 100 municipalities with unqualified opinions on their financial statements, meaning that their financials are at least credible. But within that 100, those municipalities still struggle with financial management practices, and I'll explain that in a little bit as well. They struggle with compliance issues, particularly insofar as procurement is concerned, and they largely ignore performance information, which is a problem because that often results in poor service delivery on an ongoing basis. So if you look at the whole system, the story about the 41 clean audits, predominantly being districts, if you look at the late or non-submissions, if you look at the number of repeat disclaimers and the representation of those, if you look at the notion that 100 have got credible financial statements that were published, but that came with a bit of pain, and I'll talk about that again. But if you look at this, and I'd like you to please remember the 100 and the 41, because I'm going to come back to it. 100 plus the 41 makes up 141, which is just over half of municipalities that actually have got credible financial statements that were published. So when we look at this, we recognize that the system of local government is not making any meaningful improvement in the journey of strengthening institutions, strengthening transparency, strengthening performance. Financial health, as you know very well, remains a real concern for many of the municipalities across the country. And we would say that years and years of ignoring audit findings years and years of weakening accountability have had the result of weakening these institutions. You would imagine that if you've got poor financial health in an institution, a poor balance sheet, when a crisis arises, be it COVID, be it a climate change event, a flood or a drought, your ability to deal with that properly is compromised because your balance sheet is so poor. Your capacity as an institution is so poor. The provinces have largely gone backwards. If you look at the Eastern Cape, over the 5 years, it has gone backwards. You've only got 4 clean audits in the Eastern Cape. The metros are qualified, both of them. There are 4 disclaimers. 3 of those disclaimers are repeat disclaimers. If you look at the Free State, now the state of the Free State municipalities, that one continues to deteriorate in the face of inaction by political and administrative leaders. The culture of late and non-submission is pretty high in this particular province. Whilst the metro is unqualified, it has got major management and governance problems which lead to service delivery collapse. And as you know, that metro is under administration. When we meet our teams, because as part of preparing this report, we've had occasion to visit with each of our teams in the different provinces. And our teams in the Free State lament about the notion that there is no clean audit in the Free State, and there hasn't been for a long time. Now, that lamentation is not of them really speaking as technical auditors. It's them speaking as the residents of that province, as people who are directly affected by the service delivery failings in the different municipalities. They are the people who grew up in different parts of the province, and they see the deterioration. So when they talk with pain about the state of the collapse of local government in the Free State, you really get a sense of what it is like to live in the Free State. Gauteng has got 2 clean audits. It's actually got the only metro in the country with a clean audit, which is the city of Ekurhuleni, and it's got Midvaal, which is a repeat clean audit, and always tells the story about what it takes to not only attain a clean audit, but to maintain it. The majority of the audits in Gauteng are unqualified. If you look at KZN, our view is that much work is required to institutionalize preventative controls and consequence management in KZN. Limpopo, that province has seen the greatest improvement over the last 5 years. Much of it is credited to the tone that was set at the top of the provincial government. The Premier, 5 years ago, set a tone that said we will shift our municipalities out of the disclaimer zone and they will improve. And we've seen that. The province has also benefited a great deal from the coordinated effort that was made by the provincial treasury working together with the provincial COCTA. Whilst we've congratulated Limpopo, we've hastened to caution them that their improvements have been on the back of expensive consultants. They tend to over-rely on using consultants to help them compile financial statements. And we've said to them, unless they focus on capacitating the institutions of local government in their province, this improvement will diminish, and they're not going to be able to build on it. So that's the next piece of work for Limpopo. Mpumalanga, also gone backwards over the last 5 years, and our view is that the annual messages from our audit office have really been unheeded and they've not been implemented with the decisiveness that is required. And as a consequence, the municipalities of the province have really become weaker over time. In the Northern Cape, we had a number of late submissions. Fortunately, many of those were ultimately resolved and we could finish the audits, bar one in particular, which was Pukwani, which remained unsubmitted for a great deal of time. The good story about Northern Cape is that their districts have ended up in the clean audit zone, and they've got one local municipality that's got a clean audit, which really makes the point for that province that a clean audit is not only desirable, but it also is possible. The Northwest, which is the other province without a clean audit, that province has had the misfortune of continued leadership instability, which really has led to the continued deterioration of their municipalities. When we looked at this province, not only were we able to link the high number of disclaimers to dysfunction and lack of service delivery, we could also link our compliance findings to what actually happens on the ground. 43% of the expenditures of municipalities in the Northwest, on average, resulted in irregular expenditure. What that tells you is that there is a high tolerance for non-compliance across the institutions of local government in that province. The Western Cape, with its 22 clean audits out of the 41 across the country, retains its record of having the highest number of clean audits. They have two districts that are problematic, which is the Central Karoo and the Garden Route district. That's where you see the qualified audit opinions and the ones that are unqualified. The unqualified are the ones that struggle with predominantly the procurement legislation and complying with it. I'd like to turn now to the disclaimer story. Last year, in the 2020 audit report, we offered some insight of what happens at disclaimer audit opinion municipalities. We highlighted where they were. You might recall this map. We made the point that disclaimers really are intolerable. A disclaimer says the most unflattering things about the posture of the people that lead them, whether as an appointed steward or an elected steward. If you are unable to do the very basic thing of showing what you have done with public funds, it demonstrates that you have no commitment to living up to your moral obligation to serve as a steward. It shows that you have absolutely no will to drive transparency and no interest in demonstrating accountability. Last year, we said, well, what else can we do? We have these new powers as the Office of the AG. Can we use them to propel people to act? Because moving out of a disclaimer is not that hard. Just maintain some records. So we issued material irregularities to a number of the disclaimers from last year. And you'll see some of them that are now written in green. It shows that they've improved. They've moved from where they were to a better place. Now we just have to keep them moving in the right direction. If you look at Umzinyati District Municipality, they were a repeat disclaimer for many years. Used to even have consultants help them, but still sat in disclaimer. When we issued that material irregularity notification, that MM and mayor took notice, and they made decisions that were about getting them out of a disclaimer. And yes, they benefited from direct help from the Provincial Cocta and Treasury, and they were able to move to a qualified space. Yes, we know that's not the very end of the story for them, but it is demonstrating that a disclaimer is not that hard to get out of. What we've now got to do is keep them moving in the right direction. And a similar story in the other ones that have improved. There's still too many, though, that don't shift out of a repeat disclaimer. So we know that as AGSA, we have yet to really hit the mark in demonstrating just how intolerable a disclaimer is and influencing the right change. This year, we've tried to do something slightly different, and I want to talk to you about what we did. We pushed ourselves because we said to our teams, look, when you issue a disclaimer audit opinion, you're essentially saying that no one can rely on these financials. Perhaps we should push ourselves to answer what can we say about these financials. So we did a couple of things. We went and looked through the bank accounts of a number of municipalities. We selected 10 disclaimer municipalities, and we selected them from different provinces. In the Free State, we selected Malutia Pofong, Masilonyana, and Tukuluho. And in Mpumalanga, we selected Gavin Mbeki. In the Northern Cape, we selected Joe Murulung and Geis. And then in the Northwest, we selected Lekwatemane, Madibeng, Mamusa, and Ramotseri Muilwa. And we said, what can we figure out? If we run some data analytics, what can we figure out about where the money has gone? Well, out of the 10, in 4 instances, we have something to tell you. However, in the 6, we don't have anything to tell you. Let's see what we can tell. Amongst the 4, we could say, well, so much went to paying salaries, so much went to paying for bulk purchases, that's ESCOM, water boards, etc. So much was paid for statutory payments, such as SARS. And then we could see that there was 1.7 billion rand that was paid to service providers. So now we're able to say to the oversight machinery in the municipality and in the province, to say, Mayor, Council, MEC Treasury, MEC Finance, and MEC COGTA, have a look at who these suppliers are, why are they being paid, and for what. Were these goods and services ultimately delivered? But at least you know that they can focus and zone in on figuring out what happened to the 1.7 billion rand. In the other 6 municipalities, we are none the wiser as to where this money has gone. Our teams say to me, they've gone through these bank accounts, but they can't find the unique identifiers in these bank statements to confirm where the money has gone. Now, maybe to make it a bit simpler, many years ago, when we used to write checks, you would have a counterfoil or a stub on your checkbook. And then you would write in that counterfoil to whom you're paying this check, how much you're paying for it, and why. So that once the check is gone, whether it's a week, a month, a year later, when you go back, you can always look at the stub and see where did the money go. It's pretty much the same thing. In these 6 municipalities, we either find no stub or that stub is empty. It's as simple as saying that. We've used our powers to refer these transactions to the Financial Intelligence Center for them to go and investigate who is being paid and for what purpose. That's our contribution as a National Audit Office to providing some transparency on what happens within a disclaimer municipality. The other piece of work that we did at disclaimer municipalities was to go and visit their physical infrastructure. We went to visit their wastewater treatment plants. We went to look at their landfill sites. And what we found was that their infrastructure is in a poor state of disrepair. You've got effluent running into the rivers and water sources, causing major environmental harm. You've got effluent running into the roads, causing major disruption and health hazards for the communities in those municipalities. You've got landfill sites that are so poorly maintained that it causes environmental risks, but also health risks for the communities that live nearby. So what we're able to show is that a disclaimer audit opinion is much more than a technical audit issue. It is confirmation of dysfunction. Dysfunction in terms of managing the finances, managing the institution, but also the type of dysfunction that ruins people's lives, the type of dysfunction that has a detrimental impact on people and on the environment. We've gone and used our powers to issue a number of material irregularities, and we remain of the view that this will propel the right action by those that lead these municipalities. This piece of work is really, as I say, a contribution to giving some transparency, some insight, and hopefully it will influence different choices and different behavior by the people that are elected and appointed to run these municipalities. I'd like to turn now to the state of financial management. You may recall that when we spoke about the outcomes, I talked about 141 being the 100 and the 41, the 100 unqualified in the yellow, and then the 41 that was clean. And I said a combination of those two really demonstrates that they have credible financial statements, these 141. If you look at the slide, the very bottom half of it and the middle of it, you'll see 2 bar graphs. The one shows the 141, which says that At the end of the audit, you were able to have, for more than half municipalities, credible financial statements. The one to its left shows you where we started when the audit commenced. Only 62 municipalities gave us credible financial statements when the audit began, which means that if we had audited and given an audit report on the first version of what was given to us, we would be reporting that only 62 municipalities have published credible financial statements, 25% of municipalities. What I'm saying is that only 25% of municipalities have got credible financial management practices in place. And this, despite the fact that they have people employed, CFOs in place, people in the finance units. Now, if you've got a finance unit that's staffed, basic financial management should not be a problem. Preparing basic financials should not be a problem. Here we are paying, on aggregate, 10.41 billion rand to these finance units in payroll, and yet we don't get credible financial statements. These municipalities, at the end of the year, then go and hire consultants to help them compile financial statements because they don't do it. This year, they've spent 1.26 billion rand on hiring consultants for the purpose of compiling financial statements. A combination of these two numbers, the 10.41 and the 1.26, gets you to over 11 billion rand that's being paid in cash by the system. And the same system can only produce quality financial statements in 25% of cases. At the end of each year, national and provincial governments help by reviewing financial statements, helping municipalities prepare for audit, and a range of other initiatives to help the system. And yet, we only get 62 municipalities with credible financial statements. So, what we are asking ourselves as an audit office is that every year we've done this. We allow municipalities to correct financial statements and get to a point where they publish credible financial statements. And it's a contribution that the National Audit Office has made with pride over many years. We believe that the moment has come for us and for everyone in the accountability ecosystem to start asking the hard questions about the type of support we're offering and whether or not it's actually helping. Are we perhaps even contributing to complacency in the system? Because the ones that move from 62 to 141 are unlikely to really invest in controls, which is what you hope for. So perhaps it's time for us to issue an audit report that says, well, only 62 municipalities with credible financial statements, and then engage with that reality. So these are hard questions which I must concede we're grappling with, and we grapple with them as an invitation for all players in the accountability ecosystem to also question their own input and to start thinking about differentiated ways of supporting the system. Financial health is one of the areas that suffers when there is continued neglect of financial management. The story of financial health is one that is pretty well documented, or financial ill health, shall I say, when you've got municipalities that habitually adopt unfunded budgets. They put money as own revenue in their financials on the expectation that they will bill and collect it, and of course they never do. And then what happens is they incur costs, spend their equitable share, sometimes even spend their conditional grants, but then run out of money to do the things that they should around paying for bulk purchases, which is why they end up not being able to pay ESCOM, not being able to pay the water boards, and even incurring fruitless and wasteful expenditure in the form of interest and penalties because they can't meet their obligations to creditors. You've also got a number of municipalities not being able to maintain their infrastructure. They don't plan for maintenance, they don't even budget for maintenance because they don't have the cash to pay for maintenance. And what happens? Those assets deteriorate over time and have the detrimental impact on the ability to deliver water, to fix roads, to deliver sanitation, and even electricity. So the financial health issue, in our view, is one of those critical reminders of the urgency with which we've got to deal with financial management practices in municipalities, because the little we have needs to urgently be managed much better than what we've done in the past. Performance information, which is another part of our audit, largely goes ignored by municipalities. Only 26% of them are able to submit credible performance reports when the audits start, and then they correct misstatements as things go during the audit. What it tells you is that in the overwhelming majority of instances, municipalities pay little attention to planning for service delivery, monitoring the execution of service delivery projects and programs, and reporting on what they've done with the funds that are allocated to them, which is then no small wonder why we are unable to link municipal expenditure to service delivery on the other end of the expenditure. We believe that it's time now for attention to turn to this area by the municipalities themselves, starting with the municipal manager. The mayors must attend to this part. They are given a responsibility in law to make sure that they watch over performance planning and performance management for municipalities. That's a role of mayors. They've got to deal with this thing. The councils have to attend to it, but also at the provincial level, the provincial COCTAs have a legislated responsibility to watch over performance planning. They're supposed to review the integrated development plan. They're supposed to review the annual performance plan of municipalities and make sure that it's consistent with the key service delivery needs in those communities. So it's critical that all of the different role players actually attend to this area. If you look at the provincial legislature, they've got to hold the provincial COCTA accountable for delivering on their legislated duty. We believe that if everybody in the ecosystem attends to this area, we will get it right. But everyone needs to play their role as mandated in law, and to do so consistently and to good effect. I now turn to the area of material irregularities. As you know, the law was changed 3 years ago, giving the Office of the AG greater powers to follow up on the implementation of our audit findings and recommendations. We're now in the third year of implementation. We have implemented these powers at a total of 94 municipalities, identifying in the course of this work 185 material irregularities. These MIs, as we call them, cover similar areas that our audit findings normally deal with: procurement problems, contract management problems, paying for things we don't receive, overpaying for things we do receive. It covers areas of infrastructure maintenance, areas of billings, inappropriate billings, deals with cash flow management. The stuff I spoke about in terms of the landfill sites and the wastewater treatment plants would also fall into this area, and the repeat disclaimers and the lack of attention to maintaining proper financial records. So some of these MIs we are unable to quantify. If you're dealing with public harm or harm to an institution, that's hard to quantify. Of the ones we can quantify, we've done that, where we can estimate the financial loss associated with those MIs. What we have found is that some municipalities respond. So I indicated that when we raise MIs for non-submissions, some of the municipal managers respond. When we raise MIs for repeat disclaimers, some of them respond, but not all. And so where they don't respond, then we move into the next realm of our powers, which is to issue recommendations, which is a firmer type of recommendation. It goes to the audit report. It's very clear on what it is we expect someone to do. If they fail to do that, then we move into remedial action. At Ngaka Modile Molema, we've done that. We've issued binding remedial action for 3 of their MIs. They have a number of different MIs that we've raised, but for 3 of them, we are now at the stage where we've issued binding remedial action. If that remedial action goes unattended, then we will go towards issuing a certificate of debt. In some instances, we've used our powers to refer matters to law enforcement, such as the Hawks, and as I indicated, in the case of the FIC. The major story around these MIs is that where accounting officers respond, they do the necessary. They do cancel contracts where they should. They do get their financial records in place where they should. They do discipline their staff where they should. They even go to the extent of negotiating with suppliers. There's a municipality in Mpumalanga where we raised an MI on how they were incurring fruitless and wasteful expenditure because they were paying a supplier late and then incurring penalties and interest. When we raised the MI, the CFO then went to negotiate with the supplier, negotiate settlement terms, and then they were able to be released from the interest and penalties, thus saving the municipality some money. King Sabata Dalindyebo in the Eastern Cape, when we raised an MI around interest and penalties paid to ESCOM, which is really a cash flow management issue, what the CFO there did was that they went to negotiate with ESCOM on a settlement arrangement, and they've been honoring it. They also internally started to manage their cash flows better. And then they got all of the staff in the municipality to have included in their performance contracts the need to safeguard against over-expenditure, which will have the impact of saving some money for the municipality so that they can honor their payments. These might sound like small gains. We believe that if we have more responsiveness in the system, if we have more accounting officers and CFOs taking these MIs more seriously, what we will have is a change in behavior, a change in choices, and ultimately a strengthening of internal controls. Some of the municipal managers also go to the extent of reporting matters to law enforcement. There's an MI we raised in the city of Tshwane where a part of their infrastructure was being vandalized because they failed to safeguard it. When we raised the MI, they then put security around this piece of infrastructure, but importantly, they worked with the South African police services to get people arrested, the ones that were guilty of vandalizing. Now, what we want is that there is responsiveness. So when something goes wrong, somebody acts and makes sure that there is accountability, but also we stem the losses. When you look at the number of MIs, I invite you to see it as an indicator that we have to shift the culture towards one where responsiveness by those that lead institutions increases, where there is ongoing attention to driving the systematic improvements in the culture of compliance within these municipalities. I'm now at the very end of my input, which I would like to round off by saying, for effective organizational performance, every institution needs strict processes, predictable systems, a clear set of values that are upheld through disciplined monitoring, timely and effective oversight that rewards good behavior and sanctions poor performance, transgressions, and deviations through effective consequence management. Leaders of municipalities must turn their attention to systematically restoring the integrity of their institutions. In this regard, they must stabilize and capacitate the administration in their municipalities. They must institutionalize strong financial management disciplines, whether it's as far as budgeting, collecting, or even expenditure. They must enable and insist on regular, credible financial and performance reports and use these to monitor and to oversee and to act. Leaders must set the right leadership tone, and they must set the right example around ethical conduct, disciplined action, and consequences for wrongdoing. If we all focus on institution building by identifying, confronting, and addressing the real issues that make it difficult to build and sustain a culture of performance, integrity, transparency, and accountability, then we shall win. All of the accountability ecosystem players must play their part. They must support, they must monitor, they must act swiftly and effectively. And I'd like to end off with an invitation for communities to also do their part, to recognize that as citizens, they too have a responsibility to ensure that the leaders of municipalities are consistently held accountable for their actions, and that the posture is one that really is about rebuilding institutions within the local government sphere. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, AG. That was more details. Colleagues, we have also distributed the press statement, the report itself, for you to interact with it, so that you can be able to see what we have included in the report itself. So right now, before we go to questions, so what we have done is that we've come up with an interactive website to try to locate outcomes of each municipality, so that should you be interested in establishing what happened in Ngagamudiri Molema, you are able to go into that particular municipality. Should you want to look at the one that is in Mzinyati, which has become famous within the AGSA, but I'll leave it to both the leaders to speak about it. The third one is that it also helps you to go through the data and be able to look at it from a consolidated point of view. So the website that we have is the address is outlined there. So what we have here is that you can be able to see that you can go through the data by going through each province. And as you go into each province, it will then load you the various districts that you may want to look at, and then it will give you the number of municipalities that are under each of those particular districts. And what it also allows you to do is that once you go into the districts, you can also be able to check the data below and go into each municipality. Like if you go into Mzinyati, it will show you where Mzinyati is in South Africa. It will show you their revenue. It will talk about the capacity of the municipality. It will also give you a track record, as you would have noted that the AG has spoken about the past 5 years of the audit outcomes. So it will tell you the type of audit outcomes that it had received. Now, the reason why I went to this one in particular is that this is one of those municipalities that were included in the repeat disclaimer municipalities. And after the MI, they stood up and did something about it, and they went out of there after all these years of getting adverse and disclaimer type of municipalities. And then it will give you the status of the MIs, it will give you the financial health, and then it will also give you their financial reporting and the finance skills and performance reporting in there. It will also give you what is their delivery when it comes to water. It will look at infrastructure, and then it will give you their consolidated expenditure on the infrastructure and so on. And then it will also give you a sense of, as you know, in the Auditor-General, we always talk about the controls that are necessary to prevent any financial loss or anything that may create or lead a municipality to get an adverse finding. Consequence management, give you root causes, but also you can be able to go through, after you have gone through all the provinces, you can also be able to get a quick overview of what our work entails, and on each, as you read through it, as you look at the area around the accountability ecosystem, if you go through it, it will give you a sense of who are the people that are in the accountability ecosystem. We also have what their responsibilities are for your quick reference. It works on all the digital gadget. You can use it on your phone. You can also use it on your laptop and also use it on your iPad. So we encourage you to go into this particular data. It goes up to every municipality, including the one that is in Kakamas. For those who don't know where Kakamas is, it's somewhere in the Northern Cape. The Springbok that is on the corner in next to Namibia. And you can see also what is the call to action that we're asking the accountability ecosystem to do. So I'll pause there and encourage you to please play around with the website, get into it. The address is there. You can be able to access our reports there. If you have any questions, you can also send us any questions on any data that you have from there. So without any waste of time, let me invite you to ask questions. I'll start with the guys that are here in Pretoria, and we'll take it in the set of three. This looks like they're still processing the data. Should I go to the online guys? Is there anybody online who has any particular questions?
Hi, it's Lindile here from Mbele ID.
Yes, please come through.
I just have two questions. One, it's on the 10 bank accounts. I just would like to clarify, unless I missed it. The Auditor-General spoke about the 4 accounts and their rand value, which was 1.7 billion, which was paid to service providers. But for the 6, which he said they couldn't find the information, do we know though what the rand value of that missing amount, which has been referred to the Financial Intelligence Center, is? And then my second question is, on the process of, or where she spoke about the fact that they were reconsidering if the Auditor-General should give municipalities an opportunity to rectify financial statements. What is the process that the AG's office is going to follow before it makes the final decision on whether to continue granting municipalities a chance to rectify, or going forward, you just take the initial outcome and report it as is?
Thank you. Johnson Ngobo, you're next.
All right, thank you. This is Johnson Kobo from the Business Weekly in the Free State. I just need clarity from the AG. She mentioned that the municipalities in the Free State continue to deteriorate because of inaction there. So I just want clarity what inaction means. Does it mean that the leadership here do not implement what they are supposed to do? And then also, I just want to find out from the AG that in municipalities where there are no records, you find they have spent money, but there's no record on what they spent the money on or for. Can the AG open case probably of fraud or so? Does the AG have teeth to bite? Can they do something for so that the municipalities can be held accountable? Thank you.
Thank you. There was another hand. I don't see on the screen. Khomozo? Oh, Jan. It's Jan. Jan Kronje.
Thank you. Jan Kronje from News 24. Could the Auditor-General please talk about municipalities that had money and didn't spend it, and whether she believes this is a problem, and does she have a figure of how much money remains unspent across South Africa's municipalities? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Jan, you can put your hand down. Thank you. AG, can I invite you to?
Thank you very much for those questions. Let me start with Lindile. The 6 where we could not give any insight on where these payments have gone to, we simply don't even have the rand values. I don't have that information for you, unfortunately, but I think it makes the point that the primary source for insight on what they have done with public funds must remain the people that are appointed to look after these public funds. And we must continue to insist on that. The process to be followed in terms of changing financials or not, we're raising this thing because we are asking ourselves what we've got to do differently as an audit office. For we are concerned that the contribution we're making is not having the type of impact we would have hoped for. So it's a moment of reflection. What did we do? Well, I think for some of them it's pretty obvious. Where someone is a repeat disclaimer, I've said to our teams, we really have no business giving them multiple opportunities to correct financials because you know where this thing is going. So it would need for us to engage directly with the leadership of those municipalities, as well as other players in the accountability ecosystem. We can't change the culture that has set in alone. We have to work with other players. I want to also highlight that wanting to change how we support the system is not because of a diminished lack of interest to support the system. In fact, it is a heightened set of imperatives around making sure that what we do does add value. And how can we use everything in our arsenal of tools as the Office of the AG to drive the type of behavior change that's desired? So I would like to encourage you to see it as a shift in approach, but not a change in interest to help the system. Mr. Ngobo, the Free State, yes, inaction in terms of not attending to the audit issues we've raised year on year, of not implementing the recommendations we've given every single year, of not dealing with consequence management, of not responding to the need to strengthen controls. So yes, it is inaction in all of those. Where there are no financial records, what we've done is we've issued the MIs. We did last year. Some responded, others didn't. And so we've now stepped up to recommendations. If they continue to ignore it, we'll go on to remedial action, and ultimately, we will end up with certificates of debt. The other things we've done is to refer matters to the FIC, as what it is I indicated when we talked about those 10 repeat disclaimers. So as an audit office, I'd like to just highlight that we're doing all that we can given the powers and the instruments we have. The real change is going to come where those that run municipalities change their behavior. And the people that can do that are not only the auditors. It's got to take every other player in the ecosystem and the entire ecosystem as I described it earlier on. Jan, those that didn't spend, I don't have a figure for you on the amount that was left unspent, but what we've known and have communicated over time is that conditional grants which go unspent have to go back to the fiscus. That's the matter of law. These conditional grants go unspent, and it's to the detriment of those communities because those grants are meant to be used to build infrastructure, and then those projects continue to go unattended. The reason that happens is because municipalities don't plan for their projects properly, they don't get their projects prepared on time and executed in a way that makes sense. And as I said, it's to the detriment of the communities that are intended to benefit from the expenditures on these grants. But we don't have the number in terms of how much went back. No doubt the National Treasury would be in a better position to assist there. Thank you.
Thank you, AG. Can I have another round of questions? Pretoria? Okay, should we go to the online platform again? Is there no one on the online who still has questions? Pretoria?
Hi, Harold.
Yes, hi, Johnson.
Hi, good morning. It's Andy Siwe Makinana from the Sunday Times. I'm sorry, man, I'm not able to raise a hand online, so I sent you a message, but you didn't say it.
Okay.
I've got two short questions to the AG. One is on the inability to compile these financial statements and the reliance on consultants to do so. So AG, if you've got CFOs in these municipalities across the country, and they are not able to compile statements, as you say, what exactly seems to be the problem? Why, when you talk to them, what is the issue? Why is it that they can't do this basic function? But also, when they do hire the consultants to do it, you indicated that only about 25% are still acceptable or credible. So it seems it's not just the CFOs who are employed by municipalities, but even the outsiders that come to assist them are not able to do the work. So do you ever ask these people what exactly is at issue, why they cannot perform their functions? My second question, AG, is I've noticed in the Northwest that the audit outcomes are not getting any better. And yet we know a number of municipalities in that province are under administration. You were asked in the committee to comment on these Section 139 interventions, and you mentioned something about government coming in too late and so on. But can you maybe expand, because you would expect some sort of progress, because municipalities have been under administration for a number of years, and yet it seems like there is no improvement at all. Exactly what are these things? Are you part of the teams that when government comes in to intervene in a municipality, is the AG's office a part of that process where I would expect you to be part of tailor-making maybe a plan on how to tackle the issues in a particular municipality? Because now it seems like, I don't know, I just don't see any improvement. I don't know if you'd want to expand on it. Thanks.
Thank you, Andisiwe. Any other questions? AG, should we respond to those ones?
Okay, thanks, Andisiwe. The inability to compile financials. So we've tended to ask this question every single year. The response that comes through the inquiry by our teams is that all too often you'll have a CFO that has got people employed in that municipality, but there's no disciplined attention to the basic controls. So just record keeping when transactions are being entered into. The regular reconciliations, even of bank accounts, don't happen. Now, that's not a technically complex issue. So it's not so much a skills matter, but one of discipline. Then there are instances where it's a skills issue, where people employed in those municipalities don't have the skills to do what's required. So it's a combination of the two, but I would weigh towards more the discipline. And then the question must be asked, if the CFO is unable to instill discipline in the team that he or she leads, why is their performance not being managed by the people that supervise them? Where is the MM? Where is the mayor? Where is council in holding that CFO accountable? So what then steps in is a culture where there's a tolerance for poor performance every single year. And then the hiring of consultants. We've been looking at this area for many years now, and we've raised the alarm that consultants are all too often asked to come and do the very basics. If a municipality has not done a bank reconciliation during the course of the year, and then they've been doing payments, such as the ones I listed earlier on, those 6, you got no chance of doing a credible bank reconciliation because you got nothing in your bank statements that tells you where the money went. You got no records in the municipality to tell you whom you've paid. You really have little chance of being able to give any transparency, let alone safeguard this bank account from fraud and leakage. Now, when that happens, you've got to ask yourself the question, where's the MM when this is happening? Where's the mayor? Where's the council? Where's the MMC? Where's the mayoral council? Where's MPAC? You've got to ask yourselves those very hard questions. So there's a governance and culture issue that needs attention, and everyone in that ecosystem must be held accountable. When the consultants then come, they tend to be appointed late. They are appointed for some very strange things. Now, I'd like to emphasize that we don't have a difficulty if a municipality needs a consultant to help them with a technically complex area of their GRAP financials. That's one thing. But if you can't even get your bank account run properly, you've got no business appointing a consultant at the end of the year. That's just wasting money. Some of these that waste money in this way, they'll go and hire a consultant to come and do their tax returns, their VAT returns to SARS. And then they'll pay, there's a municipality that paid 34 million rand to a consultant because they agreed with this consultant that they'll give them a percentage of what comes back from SARS. So you have a CFO appointed. Doing the VAT returns, if you're doing the basics every day and every month, that's not complex for a CFO. It's not. So why somebody would then go and find a consultant and pay them this lucrative amount for the sole purpose of doing what they should be doing in their work? Again, you got to ask the question, where's the MM? Because they're supposed to monitor what happens with expenditures. Where's the MMC? Where's the mayor? Where's the MPAC? And unless we get all of those players in that ecosystem behaving in a way that's consistent with their moral obligations, not even technical, their moral obligations, we're not going to get this thing right. So that's why when you look at how we've couched our recommendations, and this call to action is to say, all those that are responsible for leading institutions, either as elected stewards or as appointed stewards, they must all act right. They must have a posture of ethical conduct, of service orientation. They must have a posture of protecting resources. They must have their eye on building institutions. And you build institutions by putting in place an administration that has got professionals who are skilled and who are given the space to do their work, that have stability in their roles, and then you hold them accountable. You then don't tolerate somebody who's got the skills and has been in their role long enough and then comes and hires a consultant to do VAT returns for 34 million rand. You got to hold them accountable. So I hope, Andiswa, that input helps. It's a number of issues, and you can only resolve them by the leadership taking a very different tone and posture. On Section 139, yes, you're right. We were asked in the session with Parliament earlier on, why is it not working? I think there are a number of issues. The responsibilities in as per Section 154 tend to be ignored over time. And then there's a crisis. And then people want to step in with that 139 intervention. If the Provincial Treasury and the Provincial COGTA are vigilant in monitoring the performance of municipalities on a regular basis, you should not get to a point where you even get to 139 across so many municipalities. It's about fulfilling their roles as designed in law. So an MEC for COGTA is supposed to give into the legislature every year a report on local government. And that report must say, what do the annual financial statements of these municipalities say? How is each municipality responding to the AG's audit findings and audit reports? Every single year they're supposed to do this. And that report must go into the provincial legislature, and the legislature must debate that. What we find is that in far too many provinces, that report doesn't get done, or it gets done so late. They're supposed to do it within 60 days. It doesn't get done. When it does get done, it goes to the legislature never sits on it. So you don't get the designed actions coming into play. So that's why our message is really about saying, can everybody engage with their duties as given in law? Because if you do that consistently and effectively, you're going to have fewer instances where you're now dealing with Section 139. A short answer to your last question, is the AGSA involved? Often not. We're not part of the Section 139 teams. What we do, because I guess we must remain independent in reality and perception. But we do, though, is we make ourselves available to support the administrators through different insights, different reports, different engagements during the course of their administration work. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I don't see any questions on the chat, unless if there's someone else who still can't be able to raise their hand. The Pretoria guys seems to be deep into the report writing. They're not even looking at me. But we have been here for almost an hour already. So colleagues, the report, if you can just type MFMA-2021.agsareports.co.za, that is the interactive report that you can be able to find. We have also sent you an interactive PDF for you to interact with. We still remain available for any questions that you may have. You can simply get in touch with us. But with that, thank you very much, AG, HOA, DAG. And thank you very much to the colleagues from wherever they are. And you see where you can tell that you are in Cape Town in Parliament by the type of questions that you're asking. But thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much, colleagues. The media briefing is adjourned. Thank you.